Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Claim Your Magic podcast with me, Sabrina Scott. Happy Monday. I hope everyone is doing absolutely amazing. And yeah, I have so many things to talk about, so many things on my mind, so many podcast episodes in my brain, and my cat Awaz says hi. And what else? So Mercury retrograde is ending this week. Very exciting. And of course we have a lovely full moon tomorrow. And we are doing it, my friends. We are feeling the vibes, healing the things, moving into deeper awareness. We are changing, we are moving, we are growing. We got a lot going on. And Awaz apparently is in agreement, which is very nice of her. So many things to talk about. I don't have a ton to say about the full moon. By now, if you guys have been in my space for a while, you probably know how to fuck with full moons if you want to. And if you don't have any ideas and you feel called to do something for the full moon on Tuesday, I would just honestly invite you to follow your intuition. Do what feels right. Follow your gut, follow your energy, follow your vibes, and see where it leads you. Give yourself permission to just follow your own instincts and act on it. Not just, feeling the feeling, not just thinking the thought, not just thinking, yeah, that'd be a good idea, I should probably do that, but actually doing the thing, following through. And I feel like there's a lot of lessons around that are bubbling right now, not just reflecting, not just thinking, not just feeling, but taking that inspired action. Doing that thing that we've always wanted to do, being that person we've always wanted to be. And so retrograde isn't over. We might have a few more road bumps this week. I wouldn't be surprised. But you know what? It's nothing that we can't handle. Whatever level of challenge in your life that you are in these days, just know that you absolutely can get through it. Deep breaths, no matter how hard what it is that you're experiencing. Or maybe you're having a great time. Who knows? But which way you're going, it's going to be okay. So that's my few words about the full moon. Nothing much to say. Honestly, I do get a little bit bored of the witchy sphere where everyone's just talking about the next full moon. Everyone's talking about the next holiday. And I love talking about the next moon. I love talking about the next holiday too. But it does get a little bit repetitive after a while. And there is so much more that we can be talking about. So a few of the things that are on my mind that I wanted to make into episodes are, I'll just shoot them out there. And as I say them, I'll probably know which one is the right one to talk about today. So one of the things I want to talk about is haters on the internet. Another one I want to talk about is plastic surgery. Another one I want to talk about is... what is another one I want to talk about? I'm going blank. So actually that must be the two topics for today. Actually, I did remember the topics. The other ones I'm going to get into at some point, apparently not today, are going to be the importance of having new experiences, trying new things, acknowledging the importance of a couple bubble, but also acknowledging the detriments of that. And I also want to do an episode about being single for 3 years and being celibate for a year. So I'm super excited to talk about all of that stuff. But I think for some reason today, I do feel called to speak on the haters on the internet and the plastics piece. And I think this is super fresh in my mind as I am recording this episode. I'm on the tail end of a really awesome weekend. It's currently Sunday night at like 2 a.m, but for whatever reason, a cat is sitting on me. I'm cozy with a heating pad and I'm feeling super inspired to babble on here. So let's go for it. But yeah, my weekend, actually, before I get into the haters. So what I was doing while all these haters were leaving comments I didn't really see until tonight, I was out with friends. I was seeing an amazing music show. I got invited to go see something that was so truly phenomenal. It was a orchestra and some musicians and a singer from Colorado, which is really cool since that's where I grew up, doing renditions of Leonard Cohen. It was so absolutely magical. And then tonight I was invited on a date to the CN Tower, and it was super awesome. If you guys don't know what CN Tower is, since I know not all of you guys will be in Toronto, the CN Tower is the tallest structure in Toronto. It's its own little thing. It's like our version of the Eiffel Tower, I guess. It's like it looks kind of like the Space Needle. It's really tall. It's just really, really fucking tall, basically. And you can see the whole city. And so within the top of the CN Tower, there's a restaurant. And you have this insane view. And what's really unique and interesting about the restaurant is that it rotates. So as you're eating, the whole restaurant is like very, very slowly rotating. And so you get to stay seated and view the entire city in 360 degrees. It was super, super cool experience. Really like magical and fun. A new interesting thing. And doing these two new interesting things are part of why the importance of new experiences is on my mind, but I'll probably leave that to another episode. But anyway, as I'm out doing all this fun shit, I check my phone at one point and I notice, oh my God, I'm getting all these crazy hate comments. And it's so interesting because I feel like maybe 10 years ago, maybe even like 5 or 6 years ago, some of these comments really would have upset me. But now it just seems kind of sad. And I don't feel bad for these people, but I feel like if there is a word, I feel like I kind of pity them, really. And I know that's like not a very sexy word. A lot of people are like, oh, that's like so judgmental. But I really am not really making space for giving grace to people who are just nasty on the internet to strangers. I just find it like a very bizarre thing that some people seem to be engaged in. And all these random hate comments, hilariously by people who are completely anonymous. So there's no photo of them anywhere. No photo of anyone anywhere. Like, you can't really see who they are that's talking shit. I have no clue who these people are. And yet I throw myself out there on the internet, and I'm very happy to speak candidly and vulnerably and honestly and very transparently about who I am, my life, and my opinions, my thoughts, my experiences, all of that stuff to teach from, to hopefully share my experience in that it is useful to somebody else. And if I help someone else heal trauma or figure their shit out, or if I inspire someone to follow their dreams or follow their passions or become more of who they are, for me, like, it's worth it, right? Like the vulnerability online and blah, blah, blah. I'm happy to do it because I know that there are some people who are positively impacted by what I do. And that for me is like the best. That's all I really want to do is help people, right? But anyway, what I've noticed is that there's a few things that these random troll crazy people are attacking me for. I find it so interesting. And the main one that people seem to be latching onto is that I've had plastic surgery. And I find this super fascinating as something to choose to hate somebody for. I just find it super, super interesting. And these hate comments were on Threads. And so if you guys don't know, Threads is a version of, it's like Instagram's version of Twitter, basically, is how I would describe it. And the algorithm on there is really interesting. In one way, it's super responsive, and all you have to do is like do the, I guess, thread about whatever, and then you'll suddenly get topics about that in your feed, which is kind of cool. So the algorithm on one hand is really responsive, but so that's really interesting and like potentially really positive. But on the flip side, for whatever reason, people seem to be really unhinged on there and just like really kind of like mean in this crazy way. Like I haven't really seen on the internet, and at least not anywhere on Instagram in a long ass time. I don't know, maybe people are just nice on my Instagram. I don't know, but it's been a really interesting thing if I can step back and just be like, okay, this is a really fascinating thing to hate someone for. On one hand, it's like they're gonna have to either be familiar with who I am to some degree to know that I even care or talk about that or have had that done. Or these random anonymous people are going to have scrolled back deep into my Instagram, read all my shit, and been like, oh, this person cares about plastic surgery. I'm going to choose that to like make a dig. And I find it so interesting because it's something I'm not ashamed about. It's something I share openly. I'm really unbothered about it. I'm passionate about it. I love plastic surgery. I think it's fantastic. Do I think everyone needs to get it? No, I think it's absolutely a personal decision, but I don't see it as anything different than any other form of body modification. Whether that is someone as an adult taking hormones or, you know, getting certain surgeries to affirm their gender or changing their hair or getting tattoos. Like I really see it as neutral as all of those things. And so I find it really interesting when haters will latch onto that as something to try to insult me with. And so for me, it just kind of screams jealousy. It screams also a misunderstanding of what plastic surgery is about and what kind of people get plastic surgery. And I also find it fascinating because plastic surgery is a very feminine, female-coded body modification. Like tattoos are kind of gender neutral, hormones for people who are trans is pretty gender neutral. Like, you know, there's no real either, like anyone can get those. Hairstyle is pretty gender neutral. Nails, I guess, would be female coded or feminine coded. But plastic surgery, I would say, is very female coded. It's mostly women are people who get plastic surgery. Feminizing plastic surgeries are the most common plastic surgeries. And so I think there is this kind of hatred of women and hatred of femininity and hatred of intentional self-creation that is that kind of thing for me is why people hate plastic surgery. Is because they don't like to think of specifically a woman, in this case me, I guess, intentionally shaping herself. People, this is my rant. So people who hate plastic surgery and will talk shit to, in this case me, but like really to anybody, to a total stranger who has had plastics, anyone who will talk shit about plastics, in my opinion, there is this hatred of women who say, okay, here's what I've got to work with. Here's my raw materials. Here's the raw materials of my body. Or if we want to be super meta about it, like here's the raw materials of my life. And you know what? I'm going to reshape what I've been given. I'm going to reshape my body, my genetics a little bit, and I'm going to reshape the circumstances of my life. I'm going to reshape how other people see me. I'm going to reshape how I see myself. I'm going to reshape my body and how I move through the world and how I exist. And I find that really interesting, like that people can be against something like that. And I know there is a lot of people shit talking about plastics being like, oh, you're just doing it for the male gaze. And it's like, first of all, no. Second of all, no. Third of all, no. It's something I've always done for myself. And it's such an intense recovery process for most surgeries. It's expensive. It's a big investment of time to heal as well. Usually I have to buy pretty much an entirely new wardrobe of clothing. It's and potentially also invest in nursing care. Like, it really is not for the weak. Recovery is totally a really intense process. And if you want to do it, you really have to put your ass on the line. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to put your physical body, let's say, at potential risk. Spend all the money. Work hard to save the money to do the thing. And take the risk, do the scary thing, risk that maybe the results might not be what you want, risk that maybe you didn't choose the right surgeon even though you spent like a bazillion hours researching. You gotta take the risk. Trust yourself. Trust that next version you actually might like a little bit better. Of course, there's that risk that surgery doesn't go well, it causes a complication, blah, 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 but what I love about plastics, and this might sound a little bit confusing to you guys, but what I love about plastic surgery and the creation-y aspect of it is if you take a few steps back, there is this really beautiful connection to self-trust, to the beauty of taking risks. And I do feel as we get older, risks become harder to take. We have more to lose. If you already like 70% of your life, do you really want to blow it up by having a divorce? If things are 75% good, why quit the job? I'll probably do an episode about this, but I do feel that in our 30s and 40s especially, we are kind of coming up to that kind of question. Right? Like, is this good enough? Is this all there is to life? Is this all? Is this as good as it gets? Is this as good as I get? Is this as much as I can be? And this is a question that I think if you're paying attention in your 30s and 40s, it looks you hard in the face. And people get called to answer that. I guess this is the kind of like typical midlife crisis thing that people are talking about, but I don't really find that phrasing very cute. Like, I don't really see it as this like quote unquote midlife crisis. I think it's just a noticing a different type of awareness, and we are faced with that decision. Who do we want to be, and is this good enough? And am I happy with who I am? In all ways. And then, of course, when we have this knowledge of, and this questioning of what else can there be? Who else can I be? When we have to make that decision of how we're going to deal with that question, we can decide to retreat back into our shell, or we can decide that that's not the risk for me, or that's not the risk for me right now, whether that's divorce, job switch, doing something drastic and different with your body, whatever. But I really do believe that calculated, intentional, and intuitive risk-taking and being open to new experiences is a big part of what makes life vital. And by vital, I mean pulsating, living, breathing, inspiring, motivating, exciting, fun, playful, interesting. And so for me, this is going to maybe sound a bit trite, but whatever, like plastic surgery for me has been one way to explore that. And I think that's the case for most people who do it. And I've been in a bunch of communities for people who've gotten surgery, and literally it's people from all walks of life. It's like, you know, people think that the only people who get plastic surgery is like Instagram models. That is absolutely not fucking true at all. I've been in a lot of waiting rooms for a lot of plastic surgery clinics, and I would say that's the minority. Have I seen those folks? I have, but not many. Majority of it is old people, middle-aged people who look totally normal, totally regular. Just normal ass people. You know, like walk down the street and it could be any one of those people. You know, like if I walk down the street and just like picked the next 20 people I ran into, plopped them into the plastic surgery clinic, like that would be pretty accurate. It would be a mishmash of random ass people. And so it's super interesting because I kind of love using plastic surgery as a litmus test for someone's character. And because it's interesting, right? Because if a man especially is like super 100% like, it's the best thing ever, you know, then that's kind of a little bit weird. Like if someone's too excited about it, I do find it a little bit odd. But if someone's against it, I'm like, ugh. Weird. Because I don't think that plastic surgery like is mandatory. Obviously it's not. Everyone can do what the fuck they want and make their own choice. But one of the things that I think people who hate plastics fail to see, first of all, it's a form of self-expression, self-actualization, turning the inside and reflecting that outside. And it's an art form, which I think is beautiful, and it's creative. And I see it as a collaboration between my body, my genetics, my surgeon, who is an artist and a scientist, and God, or the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's this beautiful collaboration between these kind of three different beings, and of course all the objects that are interfacing between us. And it's so interesting because I remember my first plastics procedure. I think I was 23. I was dating someone for a few months who drove me there, drove me home, took care of me for a few days. And I remember he said that he told one of his female friends about it, which I didn't know he was going to do that at the time, but whatever. And so I think she was asking him, oh, what have you been up to this week? And I think he was like, oh yeah, I'm taking care of Sabrina. She got her boobs done, and yeah, she's like all banged up in bed and just needs me to help her out. And apparently this friend said, oh, I didn't think she was that kind of girl. I didn't think she was that kind of girl. And I think it's super interesting because it's what that shows is this assumption I think a lot of people have around what type of person gets plastic surgery. And I think it's vapid idiots generally, which I find fascinating. This idea that a woman can only have so much of one thing. Like if she's beautiful, she must be an idiot, you know? Or if she is ugly, quote unquote, whatever the fuck that means, she must be really smart. You know, there's only so much greatness that can be in one woman. And what's really interesting is I do find this really gendered. Like I do find that as a whole, at least in the culture as it stands, like people, specifically women actually, you know, I'm going to speak to a lot of women's psychology here. I'm going to keep it specific. A lot of women think that men can be everything. Men can be handsome, strong, intelligent. I think a lot of women make space for men who have it all, who are it all. And yet a lot of women are incredibly uncomfortable to the point of cruelty, meanness, like the insane fuckery that people sent me on threads over the past 48 hours. Women specifically, are so uncomfortable with a woman who has more than one of these traits. Like a woman that they think is too successful, too beautiful, has too many good qualities, who seems unproblematic. It's really interesting. So the last messages I got, I just blocked everyone, so whatever. But the last messages I got accused me also of being on drugs, which I am not. Like, I had to Google, like, what does that drug even do? It's like, I don't even know. Like, I did not know, like, what a benzo does. Like, I still don't really know what that does. I also don't know what Vicodin does. I've never done any of those drugs. I don't do drugs. It's like, I don't. Like, I remember when, this is kind of funny, when I got my tonsils out, I asked my surgeon for T3s instead of Percocets. I was like, I don't like drugs. Like, just give me T3s, it's fine. And she laughed in my face. She was like, absolutely not. You'll thank me later. And she was right. I was still in a fuck ton of pain after that surgery, despite the painkillers. Fucking disaster. But I also find that really interesting, right? Like, say... it's fascinating because I made another thread recently that was saying my dating standards and I don't date anyone who's addicted. So it's fascinating that on one hand, people randomly are accusing me of doing drugs, which I do not. And on the other hand, are getting mad at me for saying I'm not going to be okay with dating someone who's addicted to anything. And so it is this weird kind of like sexism that I think a lot of women have, where you kind of can't win. You kind of can't win no matter what you do as a woman, specifically with other women. And it's really interesting because I've found that as I have quote unquote leveled up my appearance through plastic surgery, through Botox and fillers, and interestingly, I haven't gotten Botox or fillers in like 2 years now, which is interesting. I would like to get Botox again because it helps with my migraines. So I probably should do that. And actually, yeah, Botox, if you didn't know, helps with migraines, prevents migraines, which is amazing. But as I've kind of been the full spectrum when it comes to appearance, like I've been an ugly duckling, like I remember what that was like. And I've also been how I look now, which I think is the best I've ever looked. And I can basically say that how people treats me has changed. I will say that women hate me a lot more often now, like in a really like vicious way that I never had experienced until I got plastic surgery work done. But especially since I got the most recent one done back a few years ago. And so yeah, it's interesting. Like, I'm really choosing to focus on the female psychology here because I do think it is surprising in its, like, meanness. Because I feel like the hate from men just looks a bit different. It's like it is its own thing. But I feel like not enough people talk about this hatred that women have for women who are not self-deprecating. You know, who are happy to say, hey, yeah, I've done this. I'm self-improving. I am enacting the vision I have of myself and who I want to be, whether that's physical or whether that is mentally, whether that is emotionally, whether that is in terms of boundaries, whatever that happens to be. And it's really, really interesting to me to observe this psychology and this hatred that women have of other women. And don't get me wrong, I don't like all women. I don't. It's okay. It's okay. No one likes everyone of their same identity category. But I do find the way that hatred circulates and cruelty circulates and between women or from some women to other women, whether it's interesting, right? It's like these people throwing hate at me, like, I don't even know who the fuck these people are. I never heard of them, don't think of them, etc. And yet these people have such opinions about me that they want to write this stuff. And one of the things that breaks my heart about it is that I think some people, of course, are going to see that and think, oh God, that's why I don't put myself out there. And I think that's what upsets me the most about it, is I do know some people are going to be discouraged by seeing some of the hate that I get from fucking random idiots. And that for me is bullshit. Is I want more and more people to be out here speaking about their stories, sharing their truth, sharing their journey of spirituality, sharing their journey of healing. I want more people being themselves, being authentic, whatever that means to them. And so, obviously, it's possible to be authentic to yourself and have that look so many different ways, right? Like my authenticity, what feels authentic to me, what gets me in touch with myself, my body, who I want to be, my vision for my future, what feels most true, is going to be really different from what that feels like to someone else. And I do find plastics and plastic surgery is such an interesting lens, at least for me, to view all of this through, because it is such a litmus test, whatever that word is, around this topic. Because for a lot of people, plastic surgery is like the antithesis of authenticity. A lot of people think that plastic surgery, because it involves intentional creation, intentional shaping, intentional adding and subtracting, that there is something inauthentic and fake about it. But in reality, if we are living in what I would consider to be a good life, an authentic life, authentic lives are also about intentionally adding or subtracting from our lives, from our thinking, from our emotions, the people we spend time with, the environments that we're in, the jobs that we say yes to, the people we say yes to. And so I think a lot of people who like to consider themselves to be all about quote unquote authenticity, who are against plastics, to me, what that shows is that those folks, bless their heart, have a very limiting view of what constitutes self-creation and what type of self-creation is acceptable and what isn't. And I do find plastics is the most, perhaps, physically obvious example of an intentional self-creation, right? Everyone gets their hair done, people get tattoos, some people transition, like whatever, it's all good. A lot of people have that inner journey that happens in a way that nobody necessarily sees it. And everyone seems to be all about that. But as soon as that glow up, let's say, is externalized, that's when a lot of people have a problem. And I do find there's a lot of self-limitation with the folks who are going to have beef with that, which I find endlessly interesting. But anyway, that's my ramble for today. Plastics as a way to understand and think about what it means to be authentic. And I think there is this weird idea that authenticity is like natural, quote unquote. And if by natural people tend to mean I don't even know, like how to phrase this, like not contaminated, not adulterated, not influenced, not created, just organically, quote unquote, naturally occurring. But I'll tell you right now, like if I have a naturally occurring like illness or infection, or for instance, right now I have an ovarian cyst that is growing. And if it grows to a certain point, naturally, you can bet your fucking ass that I'm going to get that motherfucker chopped out of myself. I don't care how natural it is. And over the pandemic, some of you guys might know this, some of you guys might not know this, I had low-grade pre-cervical cancer cells happen. And I was very freaked out about that. Thankfully, and touch wood, they have now uncancerified themselves, probably because I got the Gardasil vaccine as a way of treating that. But you can bet your ass that if that naturally low-grade pre-cancer cells turned into high-grade pre-cancer cells, you can absolutely bet that I would not give a single fuck about how natural that is, and I would get that chopped the fuck out of my system. And I got my tonsils removed. That is a very unnatural thing to do. But those things were infected and massive and causing me pain. So I got them removed. A natural intervention? Sure. Happy I did it? Yeah. Authenticity is really about courage. It's about choice. It's about decision making. We can't be authentic if we just go along and never take it 10 steps back to question what it is we're doing, who we're becoming, and the choices we're making. Authenticity is all about evaluating, reevaluating, touching in with who we are, who we want to be, and bridging that gap if there is one. Whether that's aesthetics, whether that's emotional health, mental health, physical health, whether that's earning potential and earnings, whatever that happens to be. Authenticity is all about choice, right? Deciding to be who we want to be without much regard for if anyone else approves of us, right? And I do think something like plastics, it really is abrasive to people for some reason. It's very strange, but it does kind of slap people in the face with its brazenness in a way. And I do think that folks who claim to be all about authenticity, body autonomy, and the true ability of women especially to make choices about what happens to our body should be all about it. Should see that as valid as a body choice as any other. And I think it is totally reasonable to want to change something that is quote unquote naturally occurring in yourself if you don't like it for whatever reason. Or in my case, I loved my body as it was in all its iterations. And for me, the journey in plastics was a creative choice, an aesthetic and creative choice. I had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with not liking my body or thinking I was ugly. It has never had anything to do with that for me, which I think surprises a lot of people. Because let me tell y'all this, plastics and any kind of physical change, in my opinion, at the end of the day, there you are. Same with travel. People travel to try to escape their problems and start fresh, but people's problems, they'll follow you around wherever you go. You can travel the world looking to find yourself, or to change the habits and the patterns in your old life, but they're going to follow you. And the same thing is true for something like plastics, which is why whenever people ask me about it, I always say, if you have self-esteem issues, if you don't like yourself, if there's any part of your body that you don't like, solve that shit before you get on the operating table, because the operating table will not solve that problem for you. It's a mental problem. It's a self-concept problem. It's a self-worth problem. It's a self-love problem. Anyway, I've rambled on enough. If you guys have made it through this entire episode, thank you for listening. I appreciate you guys. I know this is maybe not everyone's interest, but hopefully even those of you guys are I don't care about this topic, hopefully you at least found it intriguing or a new way of looking at something. Again, happy full moon. I hope everyone is amazing. And I want to let you guys know Magic May is happening again next month, but this time obviously it's happening inside the membership. So we had a nice big cohort for Magic May last year, and I'm really excited to kick it off again in a week and a half in the new membership. space. So more on that later. I've already talked you guys' ear off enough. Much love to everyone. If you want to holler at me, my Instagram is Sabrina M. Scott. Of course, my two main websites, sabrinamscott.com, and then of course, Claim Your Magic with Sabrina.com/links, LINKS, for all the other links that you might want or need, including more information about the membership, my clothing line, to find this podcast, my YouTube, and of course my two fun freebies. If you don't have those, one of those is my top 13 witchy books, and the other one is 4 super easy tarot spreads to get you started on your tarot journey. Okay, friends, that is it for now. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'm sending you guys all the best vibes. Bye.